The diner sat on the edge of a forgotten highway, the kind of place where truckers stopped for black coffee at 2 a.m. and locals came in just to feel less lonely. The neon sign outside flickered. Spelling open in half-lit letters inside, a young woman named Claire wiped down tables, humming softly to distract herself from the silence. She was 24, stuck in a dead-end town, and working endless night shifts to pay off debts her father had left behind. On this particular night, though, something was different. Claire noticed the faintest sound, almost like a whimper, but sharper, thinner, and not quite human. She turned her head toward the corner booth, and there, hidden under a ragged blanket, was a creature that made her freeze. It was a dragon, not the massive, fire-breathing monsters she had seen in children's books, but a tiny, trembling hatchling. Its scales shimmered with a dull silver glow, and its wings looked fragile, almost broken. One of its legs dragged uselessly against the vinyl seat. Claire's first instinct was fear, but the sound the little dragon made soft, pitiful, pulled something deep inside her chest, carefully. She reached out, and the baby dragon looked at her with wide, desperate eyes. It didn't breathe fire. It didn't attack. Instead, it leaned into her palm, as if it had been waiting for a kindness. "Hey, little one," Claire whispered. "What are you doing out here all alone?" She wrapped the trembling creature in her apron and carried it gently to the back room. She set it down in a laundry basket with an old towel, pouring some warm milk into a saucer, not even sure if dragons drank milk. To her surprise, the hatchling sipped eagerly, then curled up, exhausted. What Claire didn't know was that this small act of compassion had been witnessed miles away. In a palace of obsidian stone and burning torches, the dragon emperor stood, his eyes golden, fierce, ancient flash as he felt the pull of magic, the bond forming between a human woman and his only surviving child. For years he had hidden the existence of his disabled hatchling from his enemies, to the dragon. World weakness was unacceptable, and to have a broken ear was to invite rebellion. So the emperor had cloaked the child in enchantments, hiding him in the mortal realm until he could decide what to do. But never did he expect a mere human waitress to find the child first. The emperor's claws tightened round the throne's armrest. His generals bowed before him, waiting for commands, but he said nothing. Instead, he closed his eyes and saw through the bond. Claire, cradling his son like something precious. No fear, no disgust. Only warmth. For the first time in centuries, the emperor felt something he thought had been burned out of him long ago. Hope. And that was the night everything began to change. Claire didn't sleep that night. The tiny dragon's soft breathing filled the diner's back room, and she sat nearby with her knees pulled up, watching the creature curl tighter against the old towel. She should have called someone, the police, animal control, maybe even a vet, but every time she reached for the phone, she froze. Something told her that if the wrong person found this hatchling, they wouldn't see it as a baby in need. They'd see it as a weapon. When dawn broke, Claire placed a hand on the dragon's head. Its scales warmed beneath her touch, a faint shimmer glowing under her fingers. She had never seen anything so alive, so fragile, and yet so impossibly otherworldly. But far away, in the obsidian palace surrounded by mountains and storm clouds, the dragon emperor paced. His generals stood in silence, their armor clinking softly as they waited. "The hatchling's bond has been touched," the emperor finally growled, his voice echoing like thunder in the chamber. "A human has found him. One general dared to speak. Sire, shall we retrieve the boy, destroy the human before word spreads?" The emperor's golden eyes burned. For centuries, humans had been nothing more than pests to him, weak, short-lived, and always fearful. Yet when he closed his eyes, He saw the waitress's hands, gentle, steady, lifting his son as if he were not broken. "But beloved—" "No," the Emperor said. "Not yet." A hush fell over the hall. The Emperor's claws scraped against the stone floor as he continued, almost to himself. "If she has touched the bond, then fate itself is watching. This human, she may reveal what I could not. How? To love the boy despite his flaw." The general shifted uneasily. Dragons did not speak of love. Dragons spoke of war, of dominance, of fire. Yet the Emperor's gaze was distant, his jaw tight with something they could not name. Meanwhile, back at the diner, Claire finished her shift in a daze. She had tucked the little dragon into a basket in her apartment upstairs, locking the door like a mother protecting her child. Every time she checked on it, she noticed new things. How one wing fluttered weakly while the other stayed limp. How its tiny claws curled into her shirt when she held it. How it seemed to relax only when her voice filled the room. That evening, as the neon sign burst back to life, Claire found herself whispering to the hatchling, "I don't know where you came from, little one, but you're safe now. I'll take care of you." At that very moment, lightning split the sky above the diner. A storm gathered unnaturally fast, clouds swirling with golden fire. Claire didn't know it yet. But the Emperor was coming closer, drawn not by rage, but by curiosity, and soon their worlds would collide. The storm did not end with the night. It gathered, rolling low across the skies, thunder pressing against the glass windows of the diner. Claire poured coffee for truckers and college kids on late-night study binges. But her eyes kept flicking to the door every time the bell jingled. She half expected someone, government agents, animal control, maybe even someone worse to come asking questions. Upstairs, the baby dragon whimpered. She'd left him curled in his basket with a hot water bottle and one of her soft sweaters, but Claire swore she could feel him in her chest, like a tiny heartbeat echoing with her own. The thought unsettled her, though she didn't dare speak it aloud. By the time her shift ended, rain hammered down like nails. Claire hurried upstairs, soaked through, fumbling with her keys. When she opened the door, her breath caught. The little dragon wasn't in his basket. Instead, he sat awkwardly, unsteadily on the floor. His wings drooped, his injured one dragging uselessly, but his head lifted the second she stepped inside. His eyes glowed faintly, gold flecked with emerald, and for the first time, Claire didn't see a creature. She saw a child. "Hey, hey," she whispered, kneeling down. "You scared me half to death." The hatchling tottered forward. His claws clicked on the wood floor, and then he stumbled straight into her arms. His chest vibrated with a sound almost like a purr. Claire closed her eyes, hugging him tighter than she meant to. "You're okay. I've got you." But across town, people were noticing the storm. Strange lightning that forked downward but never touched ground. A heat in the air, as if something ancient stirred above the clouds, and in that storm flew the Dragon Emperor. His body stretched across the sky like living night, scales shimmering with molten fire. Every wingbeat shook the heavens, yet he concealed himself from mortal eyes. Only the storm betrayed him. In his mind, questions burned hotter than lightning. Why had fate tied his son to this fragile creature called human? Why, when his generals demanded silence and secrecy, did his instincts drag him here to a crumbling diner in a human city? The Emperor landed miles away, his talons carving trenches. Into a forgotten field he shifted, bones cracking, wings folding in on themselves until he stood in another form, tall, broad-shouldered, cloaked in obsidian armor that seemed grown from his own body. His eyes still burned gold, but now they belonged to a man. He began to walk back inside. Claire tried to distract herself with warm milk and toast, something she thought the hatchling might tolerate. He didn't eat much, but he licked the crumbs from her palm, his tongue rough and warm. She laughed softly, surprised at how natural it felt to share her kitchen with a dragon. Then came a knock. Not a neighbor's knock, not a polite tap. This one rattled the frame, deep and commanding, as though the door itself should obey. Claire froze. The hatchling's scales bristled, and a low, trembling sound escaped his throat. He pressed himself against her, half in fear, half in warning. Her hands shook as she crept toward the door. Rain spilled down the window beside it, distorting the figure outside. But she saw him tall, impossibly tall, broad as the doorway, his presence radiating through the glass. "Claire Summers," her voice said, low and resonant, not quite human, not quite monster. "Open the door." She didn't remember telling him her name. Every instinct screamed to run. Yet when she looked down at the baby dragon, clutching her ankle with his small claws, she knew running wasn't an option. Whoever this was, whatever he wanted it had to do with the child in her care. Claire took a deep breath, tightened her grip on the doorknob, and whispered to the hatchling, "Stay behind me." Then, heart hammering louder than the thunder outside, she turned the lock, and the world she knew shattered. The door swung open with a reluctant groan, hinges creaking as though they too feared the presence outside. Rain gushed past Claire's shoulders, splattering the floor, soaking the carpet. And there he was, a man, but not a man. His frame filled the doorway, tall enough to brush the frame, shoulders so broad they seemed carved from stone. His armor, if it was armor, did not gleam like steel, but pulsed faintly, like cooling lava that threatened to reignite. His eyes glowed golden, brighter than firelight, sharp enough to cut through her soul. For a long moment, Claire could not breathe. The baby dragon whimpered behind her, hiding but peeking out. His claws dug into her calf as if to anchor himself. The sound broke the silence, and for the first time, Claire saw something flicker across the stranger's face. Not anger, not surprise. Recognition. "You've kept him alive," the man said. Voice deep, resonant, layered with something more than human. Against all odds, Claire swallowed hard, forcing herself to speak. "Who are you, and how do you know about him?" The man stepped across the threshold as though the storm itself parted to make way. He didn't ask permission, he didn't need to. The air bent round him, heavy, electric, like gravity itself had grown stronger. "I am no man," he said simply. "I am his father." Claire's knees nearly buckled. She pressed her back against the wall, her breath catching. "Father," she whispered. "That's impossible." The man no. The Emperor crouched, lowering himself to the hatchling's eye level. The baby dragon pressed tighter against Claire, trembling. Torn between recognition and fear, the Emperor extended one massive hand, palm open, but did not force the child. "Son of my blood," he murmured, his voice suddenly gentler. "Child of flame and storm." His hand hovered, trembling slightly, and for the briefest second, Claire thought she saw not a conqueror, not a monster, but a parent aching for what was his. The hatchling whimpered, wings twitching, and buried himself against Claire's leg instead. The Emperor's jaw tightened. His golden eyes darkened with something like pain. He rose to his full height again, towering above her. "You've bonded," he said. Not a question, but a verdict. His gaze cut into Claire, sharp as a blade. That should not be possible. Claire clutched the baby dragon, shielding him. "He was dying when I found him, broken, abandoned. I couldn't just let him go." Her voice shook, but her words came out steady. "He's not a monster to me. He's a child. Lightning split the sky outside. Shaking the glass, the Emperor's aura fled, filling the room like fire crawling over the walls. Yet he did not lash out. Instead, he studied her. "You are human," he said slowly, as though testing the word, fragile. "Mortal, your lives burn like sparks, and vanish in wind." And yet, his gaze flicked to the hatchling pressed against her chest. "He chose you." Claire's pulse hammered. "I didn't ask for this," she said, clutching the dragon tighter. "But if you're saying you're his father, if you really care, then why wasn't you the one there when he needed saving?" The Emperor froze. The words struck like arrows, finding a place no blade could reach. For a heartbeat, the storm outside stilled. His jaw clenched. Nostrils fled. But his eyes betrayed something else. Guilt. "My enemy struck before I could protect him," he admitted at last, his voice quieter, raw. "He was taken from me, hidden in your world. By the time I found his trail, he was already..." He stopped, his throat working, already dying. Claire's anger softened, just slightly. But she did not let go of the child. "Then maybe fate put him here for a reason," she said. "Maybe he was meant to find me, and maybe you were meant to show up after." The Emperor tilted his head, golden eyes narrowing as if the concept was fun. "Fate," he echoed, tasting the word. "In my world, fate is forged, not given. But..." He paused, staring at her with unsettling intensity. "Perhaps you're right." The hatchling stirred, peeking up at his father. His small claws reached hesitantly toward the towering figure. The Emperor's face softened again, so slightly it almost went unnoticed. He lowered one hand, palm up, and for the first time, the child placed his claw against it. Something passed through the room like a wave of heat. A pulse of energy that rattled the lights and sent Claire stumbling. The storm outside howled louder, wind shrieking against the diner walls. The Emperor's eyes fled, and Claire swore she saw fire ripple beneath his skin. The bond between father and son reignited. But so too did something darker. For in the distance, other eyes watched. Hunters' men cloaked in iron and shadow waited for this very moment. The storm was their signal. They whispered to each other through radios, engines roaring to life. "The Emperor has revealed himself," one hissed. "Move in, kill the human, take the hatchling." Back inside, Claire's chest tightened as the baby dragon whimpered. Sensing danger, she didn't know how or why, but she felt it too. Something terrible was coming. She looked up at the Emperor, her voice cracking. "They're coming, aren't they?" His jaw hardened. He turned toward the window, fire burning in his gaze. "Yes," he said, "and when they arrive, blood will fall like rain." The diner shook under the force of the storm. Rain lashed against the windows in sheets, and thunder rolled like cannon fire across the heavens. The baby dragon whimpered, clinging to Claire, his scales trembling beneath her hand. His small heart beat so fast that she swore she could feel it thudding through her own chest. The dragon Emperor stood at the glass, one hand raised, fingers spread wide as if he could sense through the storm itself. His eyes glowed brighter than lightning, golden flames piercing the darkness. "They've found us," he murmured. Claire stepped closer, her knuckles white where she held the child. Who's coming?" The Emperor's voice was cold steel. "Hunters, men who fear what they do not understand. Men who have killed my kind for centuries. They have hunted me across realms, and now they will try to claim my son." Her throat went dry. "Claim him. They will kill you," he said simply, "and twist his soul until he serves them. He will be turned into a weapon of fire and destruction. Not a child, not a life, only a tool." The words carved into her heart like knives. Claire looked down at the hatchling, his big golden eyes wide and glistening with fear. She hugged him tighter, whispering without realizing. "Not while I'm alive." The Emperor turned, his gaze falling heavy on her. "You speak as though you're more than mortal." "Maybe I'm not strong like you," Claire said, her voice shaking, "but fierce. But he's mine now, too. And if they want him, they'll have to go through me." For the first time, a faint smirk tugged at the Emperor's lips. "You are foolish," he said. But his voice carried not scorn, something almost like admiration. "Foolish and brave." A crack like a gunshot tore through the air outside. Claire jumped. It wasn't thunder. The Emperor's face hardened. "They're here." Headlights flared against the diner walls, cutting beams of white through the storm. Engines roared outside. Doors slammed, and the crunch of boots on gravel echoed in unison. Shadows moved, dozens of them, figures in black, weapons glinting even through the rain. The Emperor drew himself up to his full height. His aura flared, hot and suffocating, making the air shimmer like it was on the edge of combustion. "Stay behind me," he commanded. But Claire didn't move. She crouched, whispering into the hatchling's ear, her voice trembling. "Stay. Quiet, sweetheart. No matter what happens." The door exploded inward before she could finish. Wood shattered, glass sprayed across the floor. The storm itself rushing inside as armed men stormed the diner. Their rifles were raised. Laser sights, slicing red beams through the rain-soaked room. Target acquired. One barked. The Emperor didn't flinch. He stepped forward, his golden eyes burning. "Leave now," he thundered, his voice layered with something not human. It shook the walls, rattled the dishes, made the very storm quiver. "Or you will not leave alive." The hunters didn't hesitate. Gunfire roared. Claire screamed, clutching the baby dragon, shielding him with her body. The room erupted with the deafening rattle of bullets, glass bursting, walls splintering, but not a single round touched her. The Emperor had moved faster than sight. His hand swept up, and a wall of shimmering flame erupted between them and the hunters. The bullets melted midair, clattering uselessly to the ground as smoke hissed from the molten barrier. The hunters faltered for a split second. Then one shouted, "Use the anchors from their packs." They hurled chains black, barbed, glowing with strange runes. They whistled through the air like vipers, striking against the Emperor's fire. And to Claire's horror they held. The chains didn't melt. They hissed, digging into the flames, pulling them apart like blades cutting cloth. The Emperor's face twisted with fury, which forged steel. He growled, "You dare bring that here?" The hunters surged forward, chains snapping, lashing, toward him. One wrapped round his arm, another across his chest. The Emperor roared, heat blasting through the diner, but the runes glowed brighter, tightening. Claire felt terror claw up her throat. They were binding him, and without him and the hatchling would be slaughtered. One hunter pointed at her. "Take the woman." Another surged toward her, his boots splashing across the wet floor. Claire stumbled back, clutching the baby dragon. She had nowhere to run until a burst of flame streaked across the room. The hatchling had opened, his tiny jaws a stream of fire, wild and uncontrolled, spewed out, hitting the attacker square in the chest. The man screamed, rolling on the floor, armor smoking. The hunters shouted in alarm, some firing, others retreating. Claire gasped, staring at the baby in her arms. His eyes glowed faintly, smoke curling from his mouth. He had protected her. The Emperor's roar shook the ceiling. He tore one chain free, molten sparks exploding as it snapped. His aura flared again, flames pouring from his body like wings. No man binds the blood of dragons. The remaining chains strained, cracking, glowing white hot as the hunters pulled with all their strength. "Kill him," one shouted, but it was too late. The Emperor erupted, Fire surged in every direction, a tidal wave of living flame. Windows shattered, tables turned to ash. Hunters were thrown screaming into the storm. Some burned. Others were hurled into the mud outside. The diner itself shuddered, its roof splitting, smoke and fire spilling into the sky. Claire huddled low, shielding the hatchling, the heat blistering her skin. But she never let go, and then silence, smoke. Curled upward, rain hissed as it struck the scorched ground. The hunters were gone scattered, dead, or fled. The Emperor stood in the wreckage, chest heaving, eyes still burning like suns. His armor was cracked, his body bleeding molten fire, but he was alive. Claire slowly lifted her head, trembling. You saved us." The Emperor turned to her for the first time. His voice was not commanding, not thunder, not flame. It was weary, heavy, almost human. "No," he said softly. His eyes fell on the hatchling, who still trembled in her arms. "We saved us." For a moment, silence hung between them. The storm outside was easing, the thunder rolling farther away. But Claire knew it wasn't over. Because in the distance, far across the night, a horn blew, deep, ancient, answered by another. And another. The hunters had been only the first wave. The true war was coming. The diner never looked the same after that night. To customers, it was just a roadside stop with greasy eggs and bottomless coffee. To Claire, it had become a cage of secrets. Every clang of a bell above the door, every stranger's glance that lingered too long, every question about the storm, it all pressed against her until she felt she might crack. She wiped down tables, refilled mugs, smiled when people tipped. But all the while her mind replayed the words the Emperor had spoken 2 nights earlier. "You are bound now. To him, to me." She hadn't asked for this bond. She hadn't asked for glowing-eyed giants in her doorway or a baby dragon who clung to her like she was the only safe thing in the universe. And yet, when she climbed the narrow staircase above the diner at the end of each shift and pushed open her apartment door, the sight of the hatchling waiting for her, his head tilting, his scales catching the light, made something inside her soften. The child trusted her, needed her. And if what the Emperor said was true, then perhaps she needed him too. But others had begun to notice. Men in grey suits arrived at the diner under the pretense of ordering pie and coffee. Their questions were casual but sharp-edged. Strange noises upstairs, unusual pets. Ever see odd lights in the sky? They left business cards without names. Just numbers. Claire threw them in the trash. Worse than the suits were the shadows. Figures that didn't move quite right, always standing at the far corner of the lot or across the road under the streetlight. When she blinked, they vanished. But the hatchling would hiss low in his throat whenever they were near, and still the storm clouds lingered. The Emperor had not returned in his armored human form, but Claire felt him in the sky. At night she woke from dreams of fire and wings, his voice whispering through thunder, "Protect him. Do not falter." She hated how those words stayed with her. One evening, she carried the hatchling in her arms, down to the river behind the diner. He had grown heavier, his wings stretching longer, though the right one still dragged weakly. The air smelled of wet earth, the river swollen with rain. She thought maybe, just maybe, letting him touch nature might heal him more than her sweaters and scraps of toast ever could. She set him on the grass. He sniffed, blinked, and then stumbled forward, his little claws digging into the mud. For the first time, he tried to spread both wings, the left unfurled wide, catching the moonlight. The right trembled, bent, but lifted an inch. Claire's heart soared with him. "You can do it," she whispered, as if cheering a toddler's first steps. The hatchling gave a determined cry and leapt. For a moment, he hovered, just a breath of flight, a heartbeat of sky. Then he tumbled back down, rolling in the grass. Claire rushed forward, scooping him up. But instead of crying, the hatchling made a sound she swore was laughter-sharp and joyous, a spark of defiance. Against the world, tears filled her eyes. She pressed her forehead to his scaled brow. "You're stronger than anyone knows." That was when the river shifted. Not the water, the reflection. Claire froze. In the rippling surface, she saw not her own face, but golden eyes burning like suns, a crown of horns, a shadow of wings stretching wider than the world. The Emperor. Her breath caught. She turned. No one was there, but the reflection spoke. "He grows. He remembers soon. The bond will awaken fully." Claire's hands tightened round the hatchling. "What bond?" "Why me?" The water rippled harder, the voice low as the current. "Because you carry the courage his own blood cannot. My generals seek only war. My court craves only power. But you saved him not for what he is, but for who he is." Claire's chest tightened. "He's just a child. He is more than that. He is heir, and you, human, are now part of his fate." The reflection shattered with a crack of thunder. When she blinked, the river showed only herself and the hatchling again. But she was not alone. A rustle came from a tree line. Figures emerged, men cloaked in dark armor, their faces hidden, their weapons curved like talons. They bore no resemblance to the grey-suited agents. These were older, ancient. The hatchling whimpered and pressed against her. One of the armored men lifted a blade that pulsed with red light. His voice echoed metallic. "Inhuman, by order of the High Council, surrender the child." Claire's heart hammered. Her feet refused to move, yet her arms clutched the hatchling tighter. Behind her, thunder roared again, louder than before. She didn't need to look to know. The Emperor was coming. And this time, war walked with him. The night split open with thunder. Claire staggered back, clutching the hatchling so tightly he let out a muffled cry. The armored men from the tree line closed in, their weapons glowing faintly as if alive. Each step they took pressed against the air itself, bending the world heavy around her. "Stay back," she whispered, though her voice shook. She had nothing but her body to shield the child. No blade, no power, just a heartbeat of courage. The leader of the warriors raised his crimson-edged sword. "You protect what is not yours, human. That creature carries blood that belongs to the Council." Claire's stomach turned cold. Creature. They didn't see a baby. A child struggling to spread his wings. They saw a weapon. Before she could speak, the ground shuddered. Trees swayed violently, though there was no wind. Then, like a mountain tearing itself free from the earth, a shadow descended from the clouds above. The Emperor. He landed with a thunderous crack, the impact rippling through the soil. His wings spread wide, half shrouded in smoke and lightning. His form towered, horns curved back, golden eyes aflame, every scale glinting like molten bronze, even diminished from wounds and exile. He was terror-made flesh. The hatchling squealed with recognition, wriggling in Claire's arms. She felt his tiny claws dig into her shirt, as if begging to leap forward, to rush into his father's protection. The armored men did not bow. They did not retreat. Instead, their leader's voice rang out with venom. "Emperor Caliph, your reign ended the moment the Council declared you unfit. This child will not be raised by a traitor." Lightning licked across the Emperor's wings. His voice rumbled the earth itself. "You speak of traitors while you hide in shadows. You sent assassins after your own kin. You would twist my heir into a puppet, and you dare come here." The hatchling whimpered. Claire pressed him closer, whispering softly, "It's okay. I've got you." Her words were quiet, but the Empress' gaze flicked toward her, brief, unreadable. Like a storm pausing mid-strike, The first clash came sudden. Two warriors lunged, blades slushing arcs of red light. The Emperor swept his tail, knocking one into the river with a crash. The other he caught mid-strike, claws crushing the blade like brittle glass. But more poured from the tree line, dozens, maybe more. The council had sent an army. Claire backed toward the diner, but the hatchling squirmed, eyes wide, wings twitching. He wasn't afraid. He was eager, as if something deep inside him recognized this moment. "No," Claire whispered, fiercely, "not you. You're just a baby." The Emperor's roar shook the night. Fire erupted from his maw, searing the battlefield. Warriors screamed, shadows scattering, though more pressed in. And then it happened. The hatchling pushed free of Claire's arms for one terrifying instant. He fell, wings flapping weakly. But instead of crashing, his small body glowed faintly, veins of golden light coursing through his scales. His broken wing lifted higher than it ever had before. The Emperor froze, mid-battle. Eyes widening, the hatchling gave a tiny, defiant roar, childish, but powerful. The glow around him spread, forming a shield that shimmered between Claire and the advancing warriors. Blades struck it, but sparks flew harmlessly aside. Claire gasped. Her knees nearly gave out. "Oh my God!" The Emperor's voice, low and thunderous, trembled with something she never expected. He awakens, the battlefield stilled for a heartbeat. Even the council soldiers hesitated, staring at the glowing child. Claire reached for him, her hand shaking, torn between fear and pride. "Sweetheart, what are you?" The hatchling turned, and for the first time his golden eyes locked with hers, filled with something ancient, something that was not just a child's. The Emperor stepped forward, fire still smoldering in his chest. "He is not only my son. He is the storm that will unbake kingdoms." The sky rumbled as if to agree, and for the first time, Claire realized whatever she had stepped into was far larger than a single diner, a single night, or even a bond between a human and a dragon child. She was standing at the edge of a war that would tear the heavens apart.